Hello. I didn't realize we were on. I have with me today from the Women's Group Conference, Sherri Sensabaugh. Sherri, welcome.
Thank you.
Sherri owns her own business here in Huntsville.
Yes, Act Personnel Service.
And we have also with us Berguetta Griggs, and she's going to be talking about the Juried Art Show. I'm going to, first of all, talk to you for a moment, and I'll welcome you here.
Thank you very much, Ben.
And Sherri, tell me a little bit about yourself and how how long you've been here. Just let me get acquainted with you.
Okay. I've recently opened Act Personnel Service in Huntsville. My husband and I chose Huntsville, and I arrived on December 6th, right before the snowstorm of Huntsville. And at that time, I attended the Women's Conference, then that following March. I had done that in Los Angeles and Orange County and was very impressed with Huntsville's first conference. And that's how I became involved in the planning stages of this year's conference.
So it's held, how often is it held?
It's annually held. This will be the second annual conference for the Tennessee Valley.
What are the goals of the conference? I saw a lot from the program last year. It just sounded like there were so many wonderful things that happened at the conference. What are your goals?
What the conference is looking to do is to promote communication, to recognize achievements, and to be a forum for the discussion of matters of interest to women. It's to bring women together and let them learn from each other.
What are some of the topics? Well, first of all, is this connected with a national conference?
March is nationally observed as Women in History Month, and the conference is held in March, and it is a national theme. This year it's Strength and Vision, and that is done across the nation.
So even though it's recognized as a national event, the one that you have here in Huntsville is actually just produced totally by local women, even though you're bringing in some speakers from outside of the state.
Yes, that is true. It's put together by, last year in the first conference, there were over 20 women's organizations here in the Tennessee Valley that put this conference together and did a wonderful job. It was the first time many of these groups had ever communicated together.
I think that's kind of the idea of this Victory Network, is to get all the peoples together that have different things happening. So we're happy that the Women's Conference is just part of that Women's Group Conference. How do the conference goals work together with the art exhibition?
Last year, from comments, and I have a variety of different comments from women that attended the show, they showed an interest in seeing more art and creating a broader forum for women artists. And it ties in the ability to communicate spiritually as well as visually for women. And women don't have as many opportunities to strictly show their work and to show the community what women artists are achieving and some of their goals.
Who's invited, and what kind of women usually respond to?
We have, it's a regional show. We have included Georgia in the Tennessee Valley, and we are sending out to colleges, to different women art groups. I have recently met with President Garcia of the Atlanta School of Art, and she has been doing some networking for us also. You must be 18 years or older, and there is a $15 entry fee that is non-refundable, and the show will be selected. And then Berguetta Griggs, who's with us today, is the juror of awards.
Well, great. Berguetta, am I saying that right?
You're saying it right.
Okay, what part of Germany are you from?
I'm actually from Kassel, which is a very artistic city. It was destroyed during the war.
Is it close to Dresden? I'm trying to place it on my map.
No, it's Western Germany.
Western Germany, okay. And
near Frankfurt.
Near Frankfurt. That I know. I've been to Wiesbaden and Baumholder. We were in the Indy 500 accident one year, and when I got over to Germany, they interviewed me on television about that. And so I've been to some parts. It's beautiful over there.
Thank you.
Now, it was very interesting driving on the Autobahn, because I don't think they have the same kind of laws there in driving. And they were just going, oh, it just seemed like I would be going 80, and they go right past me like I'm standing
That's
still.
right,
Well, you have
to me too.
you have a company which is an Investment Art Brokers Incorporated.
That's right.
Here in Huntsville.
Absolutely.
And Fine Art, a real investment alternative. I saw, was it yesterday's paper where Picasso sold for $29 million or some
yes, right.
amount? We have a friend in Little Rock who he has been collecting art for a long time, and he didn't realize that he actually had a Picasso. He thought he might have, but he thought it was just a fine print. And he found it, and he has just been on cloud nine. And I saw that yesterday. I thought, oh, he's going to be so happy. But you know, art is, since so many investments have been taken away from us, in essence, passive investments, that art is one that for sure is an investment that will grow. It will never become worth less.
That's absolutely right. It's a shame that so many people don't understand that, but you hit it right on.
Every once in a while, I just recently bought a painting in Pennsylvania and brought it home on the plane. You know, I wouldn't let them check it, of course, and boy, was it wrapped, and I had a rope handle to it, and I would not let that. I didn't want anybody to know that it was the oil painting from the years that it was, but I was very careful with it. But I love to learn a lot about collecting art, and I think a lot of people are doing that for investments now.
Well,
before we learn about that, tell me a little bit about the Juror Art Show. And first of all, what is a Juror Art Show? What does that mean?
Well, it means that you are actually submitting an entry form as an artist, that you are submitting slides to be viewed of your work. And I think in this case it's limited for the two-dimensional to one slide and three-dimensional to two slides. And then the slides are being viewed by the jurors.
Prior to the actual
Prior to the actual exhibition. And of course it's the right of the jurors, I believe, to reject artworks that are not up to standards. So it qualifies you a little better from just average shows where everyone can exhibit. And also...
forget that idea I had about bringing one of mine, Sherri. I think I'll just... I don't know if I can stand rejection or not. No, I'm teasing. Well, I might do that just to go through the process. I've exhibited before, but not in anything, that was a Juror Art Show.
That's exciting.
So how does one submit because you have a deadline for submitting the pieces of artwork, don't
I
you?
think maybe Sherri brought a piece of one of the exhibits.
I think it's is it January or February 5th?
January, yes, it's actually January the 6th, and I don't know if you can see that on camera, but that does show January 6th is the last day for the receipt.
You'll hold it there until he gets focused. I think we'll be all right. Yeah, there you go.
Receipt of entries, and then February 3rd will be the notification of the juror's decision. And then the work itself needs to be received no later than February 20th.
Are you trying to keep this to the Tennessee Valley area and Georgia or Alabama, or is it just
Tennessee
Huntsville?
Valley area.
And why was Georgia included?
Last year we had a response from Georgia and from Atlanta and from that area of women that attended and that were interested. And that's why we did include them.
Now you have another poster here. This is your poster for
the conference and the fine art exhibition. And this does show the entire agenda. One other thing we should mention is that the opening of the show is March 3rd at 6 o'clock, and it is being held at the University of Alabama in Huntsville's Church Gallery. And following that, there is a dinner theater play which will be featuring Deborah Baber, and she will be doing Half the Battle, which is about Susan B. Anthony.
And do I understand that also the astronaut will be here?
Yes.
Oh,
and as a matter of fact, I have brought a picture of Jan Davis. And
Of course, we've all seen her flying in the air. No, you can show it. Just turn it at slight angle so that the cameraman can get it. But she's in, when you go to the, out to the Space Museum and watch the movie there, there you get to see her flying in the air and floating around. So that's going to be really exciting.
we're very excited about Jan Davis, especially since this year's theme is strength and vision. I think she personifies that for women. And we're very excited. She's also from Huntsville, or considers Huntsville her home, and graduated from Huntsville High School, and she has her bachelor's from Auburn and a master's and a doctorate from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. So
It'd be
she's
someone
very pleased.
we can all just really aspire to keep on keeping on like she's done, to become
Reach
a
the
woman.
stars.
Yeah,
Yes.
reach the stars for sure. That's right. Well, back to you, Berguetta, and the Juryd Art Show. Are you creating, or is there new art being created at this time?
By myself. Actually, at this time, I'm at a standstill, and that is I have come to a part in my life about 10 years ago due to some various downsides in my own personal life that I decided that I really should examine what I was doing. Because in professional art, which there's definitely different from the, just enjoyable art that lots of people do, if you're getting into the professional circuit, then you have the professional shows and you have the slide exhibits and so on in order to be accepted. So the main thing that I'm doing right now is art conservation, really. I studied what was called then art restoration. So now I'm doing, again, art conservation, because I also studied fine art, and I thought at this time in my life I did not feel as creative. And it's also a wonderful feeling when I restore a piece that was 100 years old before it got to me, and probably in very, very sad condition, and then I'm restoring it and it probably live another 100 or 200 years. And I enjoy that more than creating something new at this time. But I'm sure I'll get back to it. You just can't do without.
That is so necessary to do, but I don't understand how that could be true. Tony's brother is in Pennsylvania, and the Libharts, and they've been artists since the 1700s, and he teaches art at university there, and he restores paintings, fine paintings for the governor's mansion and the museum, Brooklyn Museum, and so forth. And he is so good that you cannot tell his paintings and his work from the original. I just don't believe anyone can tell the difference. And I say to him, Joseph, why don't you want to paint original art? Why do you want to repair other people's art? But he says there's something so thrilling to him in working with these old masters, the art, that he really has finds a joy in restoring the art, as opposed to, now, he has painted many years, but he still is concentrating almost entirely in restoring art. But I don't understand it.
Well, see, you have to know, like he was your...
Because I want to paint a pretty picture, sun, the moon,
but you
landscape.
know when you're restoring something, you get that feeling of whether it is just a piece that someone really had in their family and it has sentimental meaning, or whether you're restoring a museum piece that has historical meaning as well. But it's entirely different, because I myself know when I created something new, I learned enough to want to move on to the next, and I didn't really want to be surrounded with my own art. Not that I wasn't satisfied with my work, but I would always be anxious to find something, and I also would think of how to create something that has never been created before. So I was creating some of my own problems there. But to restore something, it's an entirely different feeling. It's very thrilling to see it in its completion. It's very much enjoyable. And I think if someone has not been able to do that, they can't identify with that. Because it's such a thrill to create something, too.
I guess in a ridiculous small way, I could understand that conceptually, because I like to take a very fine piece of antique furniture and refinish, sand it down to, and then just put oil on it, no varnish or anything.
Yeah.
So I can perhaps appreciate
Feel
that.
that.
I'm enjoying more all the time. Now I'm going to be funny, repairing, as I personally age, I like to continually repair here, so maybe I should enjoy listening to, understanding more how you can enjoy repairing and preserving beautiful art. Do you have much that you deal with in Huntsville? Huntsville is becoming more cosmopolitan, and there's actually people that care with our incredibly gorgeous Twickenham area and people that live there. But not only there, I like a very modern home with some antiques and some paintings and art.
Is there much artwork
Yes.
here? That you're saying? Yes, there is quite a bit of artwork, but some of it has been sadly neglected. I restored the Eccles Hills collection, where the president of UAH resides, and it had never been touched before. Whereas if you're restoring something in Europe, normally that someone has worked on it prior. They have tried to keep their things in shape simply because it was part of their history. But here many times it was part of their history, but it was still neglected. Maybe it was stored in an attic because nobody really felt comfortable with it, and they didn't know what to do with it, because really conservation in this country is still a very new thing. People still ask me if I'm in wildlife sometimes. Thinking of wildlife conservation.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that. That would be a good.
It was called, restoration originally, and then someone decided to change it.
And one of the things I noticed when we were over in Germany and some of the European countries, we had an opportunity to take a trip around the world speaking, but here, boy, if we have something from 1850 we think is really old, and 1700s, that's just really, and there they would have them from, I don't even want to say the ages. What are the ages of some of the paintings and artwork? 15th, 16th century. And that's just, and they're so gorgeous. And they just kind of take it for granted, and they have it out in if it's even a piece of furniture, might be out in the hallway of one of the pensions, the bed and breakfast place, and we would have it as our centerpiece in our home, the age of the piece of furniture. I asked a person just a couple of days ago that was from Brooklyn. I said, "How did you happen to come to Huntsville, Alabama?" And he said, "I drove a yellow Cadillac." How did you happen to come to Huntsville from Germany?
Oh, I came here with my former husband, and we were visiting my cousin. She said we were on our way to work. He was going to be employed by Boeing in Seattle, Washington. And his family was from South Carolina, Georgia. So my cousin said, she's my only cousin, and she said, if you don't stop by Huntsville, Alabama first, you're being disowned. So we came here and we loved it. And that was in 1966. So we've been here ever since. It's been just a beautiful area to watch it grow and to see such a progressive city, which is one of the reasons we opened Investment Art Brokers, is because we felt it was definitely high time to have one fine gallery in this town. And so it's been very exciting.
You're located on Memorial Parkway, Main Street South Village, and where...
That is the new Averbush development.
Oh, yes.
It's with the clock tower. It's a beautiful surroundings.
Right.
And the Masters are there, and Liberty Tree. And it's right past Bird Spring Road. I mean, it's right past Martin Road. If you get to Bird Spring, you're too far.
What do you spend your day doing?
Right now, it's a combination of things. One of my partners, Ann McLean, is there most of the time, as well as myself. I'd love to still be in touch with all the different galleries and select the new art and the different estates, because a brokerage is, art comes in and goes out. Unfortunately, sometimes we'd love to keep them, but it's not that all the things that are showing are purchased. They are consignment works many times. So I have to always find out the new things and the exciting things.
What are the new things?
Well, we're handling primarily 19th, 20th century, and some new art, but we have not decided on any local artists at this point. we've been searching around, and there is so much talent out there. And in all fairness, you have to consider we have not even really tried to have people apply, because at this time we've been very full with more antique oil paintings, fine investment quality graphics, and but I think we're going to expand by spring. I think we're going to.
What does one look for? Let's say you went to your attic and you had this gorgeous, colorful lithograph. It said down there, what would one look for?
Well, you would like to see that it's signed in pencil, primarily.
Signed in
Signed
pencil?
in pencil on the bottom.
No ballpoint pens?
Well, no, don't say that. I had one of the very fine wildlife artists one time. I said, I'd like to have one of your works, but I questioned, wildlife artists sometimes are very interesting to me, especially these limited edition type people who were doing commercials. Doing commercial art and then suddenly do animals anatomically correct. So I questioned him. I said, how come, you were doing this not so long ago and now you're doing everything anatomically correct? And he got very upset with me. I said, you must be using some camera equipment very strongly, maybe even projecting to the canvas, which is being done by many other artists. And he didn't like that too well, and he signed the print in ballpoint pen. Now, I was very upset because that was a gift to my daughter. But you really would like to see it signed in pencil. And if, depending on when it was dated or so on, later on they started having limited editions by adding numbers. Like 1 out of 20, that would be a fine edition to have.
Well, let's say this was in the 1800s.
Probably would been signed in pencil, and it may have been signed into the etching itself. If let's say it was an etching, so it was etched into a play, then it would have been into that. But sometimes they were already signing in pencil like that.
Is there any way to collect art that most of us are not going to buy a $29 million Picasso, and those things just very few people have that opportunity. Right. But many of us would like to collect something that we could enjoy and could afford. But if there were something we could look for and say, if
Absolutely.
you will collect this, there's a possibility it will appreciate in value.
Right.
What do you look for?
I think one thing, I always say, buy art for enjoyment first.
Yes, I appreciate that.
You should absolutely buy what you enjoy. To say something is going to go up, that's all wonderful. But many times I've seen people who invested in pieces and thought they would resell them and then got so attached to the piece, they wouldn't sell them. Even if it put their children to college, they wouldn't sell them. So I would always say buy for your own enjoyment first. And then if you have a good broker or, a good gallery owner or whoever who will give you some advice, because pieces can start as low as $200, and even lower in some cases. It just depends on, and I know Sherri knows quite a bit about that herself, because you worked at a gallery, right?
Yes, I did, in Hawaii. I worked
Hawaii.
at Gallery Hawaii.
Oh, was it? Oh, right. Well, how you've been to her gallery, I'm
Yes,
sure.
I have.
How is it different in Hawaii? What did you see emphasized, maybe, as opposed
Hawaii, when I was working in Hawaii, which was early 80, late 79, early 80s, they were very much into Dolly, and Dolly was everywhere. There were a lot of fake dollies. There was Red Skeleton's clown art. Berguetta's gallery is much more professional. It's smaller. We had a lot of pieces that were what I would consider good art or fine art, and we had a lot of fast art, so to speak. I was not...
fast art?
Yes.
You mean like instant painting?
Yes. Absolutely. And there is a lot of that, or production art, I guess you would say. There's a lot of that.
Where a person, an artist, paints the original, and then people who maybe wouldn't have an original concept could paint copies of that, or what do you mean by?
Actually, in the case of Dolly, he was at that time very ill, and he is very old, and his work was becoming very, very popular and very expensive, and he had ghost painters, so to speak, that were under his umbrella, but they produced a lot of mass art. They did a lot of very quick things. I don't think that's the case. I don't know if he's doing much now. I've been really out of it. Berguetta would know that.
No, I think he's not creating very much at this point.
Right. And that is a shame. That's one of the things as an investor, when you're talking about, you need to look for and be able to trust the art dealer that you're working with in some pieces that you get. Every artist has different periods in their life, and some are better than others.
Right. Well, we have different periods just in our personal lives, so
right.
it's the same with every artist.
We certainly do. It seems like we go through a phase when there's just a lot of modern art, but I don't seem to see as much of it as we did in maybe the 60s, the early 60s. I'm talking about people who are painting today, the college, people who are getting an art degree in college that were doing a lot of splashes and really
I feel
unusual.
Things are much more commercial now, much more slick, which is, I don't know how you feel, but things that are coming out now are more 80s geared, and the 80s is very automated and very high tech, and I mean that's what I see.
Right.
The artists are usually 50 years ahead of many times of what's happening in the world. Isn't that true? It seems that they're visionary so much. Is that what you find, that many times they paint? You don't think so?
I don't know that they're so much ahead. I mean, my personal opinion, as they're in maybe another dimension, a lot of times on a different level, and maybe reach into a different place at that time in history. That's my personal.
Well, I think too, some things want to get so far out of hand. Like in my hometown, they have the Documenta, which was one. The elite will exhibit there, or will be asked to exhibit there, and a lot of Americans will exhibit. But it is so far out, in my opinion, even as a dealer and an artist, it is so far out. I think if someone has to explain an art piece to you for half an hour to 2 hours, there's no longer any art there. Because you should be able to look at that, and you should, even if your imagination has to work, you should be able to see something there. But for someone to have to explain it to death doesn't really mean anything. And I always say it's like the emperor without closing, the little, children's story, right? Because it just comes down to the wire there. I think if art has to be explained too much, I think it should be self-explanatory to an extent. You should be able, even as a layman, to either enjoy it or not enjoy it. But to have to be totally explained, there's really nothing there, in my opinion.
How did you get interested in art? Were you, when you were a little child, 3 years old, doing
4 years old.
4 years old.
My parents decided to let me have my first teacher at the age of 4. And I think all they really decided to do was to keep me happy, because my brother was so brilliant that he skipped 1 grade and he was 5 years older. So they thought, I need to do something or else I'm going to feel that. I didn't know at the time what all that meant, but so they let me go ahead and start with watercolors, really. And I never had to stay within any lines because I would create my own lines, so I think that's what started it. But my grandfather on my father's side had a art gallery in Berlin before Berlin was bombed, and we lost it at that time. But so my family had a tremendous interest in art, and that's what did it for me.
How do you feel about teachers teaching children to stay within the lines and
I
coloring?
think it's a very, very sad concept. I think when we get to this, and I'm sure Sherri agrees, I always felt, and I have taught for 11 years, I taught at Westminster Christian Academy when my daughter was little, because I felt that an art teacher was needed, and they decided to accept me there. But I always feel when things get so tightened down, it's just like learning to read and write. Well, anyone with a fairly normal functioning brain can learn to read and write. Well, anyone can learn to do art, but if you have to confine them within such a strict lines, for instance, I think many times it stifles the creative ability of the child.
What would you do now with a child, 3-year-old, that has an
Has the
interest in doing it.
I would say just buy as many paints and just cover the floors or wherever they're going to be, because it's going to be messy, and just give them plenty of space and let them do and let them see. And also, you know, with as far as psychology and all, you can see how happy a child is by the color that the child uses naturally. So, and if you give them plenty
if
of
he paints
space,
with a lot of dark colors, he's probably
he might
feeling
be, he might be not
sad
very happy.
inside.
Right.
And if he paints with yellows,
lots of bright colors, and gets excited. But you can also see the parents who will not appreciate the work that the children do. Then you can see some sad work also. Because if it's just thrown away as soon as it's graded, that's true. I think for children's art, it's good to hang it on the refrigerator. You know, just that way you can change it a lot and have it right there visibly. And they had for the refrigerator
so much
a lot.
fun.
Yeah, and that's in your kitchen, and you can always talk about it. But I think that's probably the best thing, is to encourage the children.
where's Westminster Christian Academy?
It was at that time right off University, and I think it's still in the old Evangel school now. But
And you taught there 11 years.
I taught there. Well, actually, art teaching, I could do it all in one day. And then for junior, senior high, I added an additional 2 hours to the regular school time. And really, we never got out before 6, because I felt that, you know, if you're going to deal in orals, or if you're going to deal in sculpture, a regular 55-minute period is just not enough. You get your paints out and it's time to go. So I said, for the people who are really interested, we're going to do it this way. So it was interesting to see how many stayed and how many really enjoyed it. It was a good time in my life, too. And as well as getting my daughter into fine art.
That's one way to have your child to take advantage, or for you to take advantage of your child's gifts and talents. Is
Absolutely.
if the school doesn't have it, just volunteer to go over and teach it.
There you go.
Or-
That's right.
That's
That's
right. And
one
that's
thing.
what the conference is about too. Community involvement. It's getting involved. If it's your child's life or your business or your opinions, and that's the forum that is there.
Women's group conference to bring women's organizations together, like the Victory Network brings lots of groups together. And well, I want to thank you very much for coming today, Berguetta Griggs.
It's a hard name. A lot of people call me Bridget, you know.
Bridget, okay. I knew a Berguetta Arnlund from Sweden that was over here, and
Yes, that's right. My last name is Swedish. I mean, my first name is Swedish. My mother
it?
decided on it, because most of the German Brigitta will not be said. It will
Brigitte.
say Brigitte with an
Brigitte.
ending with an E. You know?
And Sherri's Sensible.
That's right.
What name is that? Is it like Libhart?
That
You have no idea.
Actually, it's German.
Is it?
Dutch.
Well, Libhart, I guess is. Yeah, that's
Yeah, very
German. Love heart. Is that what it means?
Yeah.
Well, this will be coming up in March, but the Druid Art Show, you must have your art in, your slides in by
January 6th. That's correct. And the conference itself will be the 4th, all day. And it's a very exciting program, and it's very interesting. There'll be more information about it as it gets closer to the conference.
Hopefully, a lot more coverage too.
Right, and we're really hoping that women will find this, as we do, a very empowering. It's just a wonderful feeling to see what everyone else is feeling. From the women entrepreneurs, as